Exclusively on the Oysterling podcast, the fastest growing hospitality job platform in the US, Nicolas Kurban went from managing a $500 million F&B portfolio at Four Seasons to opening a 40-seat Lebanese restaurant in Delray Beach. Nicolas traded corporate luxury for entrepreneurship and hasn't looked back. His restaurant, Amar, is now 200 seats and growing across South Florida. Hello, Nicolas. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, to start, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about your career path.
Mm. My name is Nicolas Kurban. I'm currently the owner and founder of Kurban Hospitality. We own a couple of restaurants and concept in South Florida, mainly in Delray Beach. My background goes way back. I started in the business when I was young. My dad owned restaurants in Lebanon, so I grew up loving the business. I came to the U.S. when I was 18. I went to college, got the graduate from the hospitality management in Ohio State, and my plan was always to go back to Lebanon and help grow my dad's business. I did go back. I would say when I graduated. I went back, spent around 7, 8 years in Lebanon. I was young. I helped my dad grow his business. I also opened 3 restaurants on my own, even when I was 24, 25 years old. We did well, but as we all know, during the time, I would say that was in the 90s, Lebanon was going through a lot of turmoil. So I decided to kind of come back to the US um, and really focus more on the growth here. Even though I was an entrepreneur in Lebanon, I never really worked for anyone when I graduated, other than working for my dad and for myself. I had to go back and take the employment path, right? When came back, because I came back, I was like my early 30s. So as much as I felt I knew a lot about the business, and I did know a lot of the business, but no one cared because my business was in Lebanon. So I cannot brag about, hey, I owned restaurants in Lebanon. So I had to go back to the US and I started as an, and I made myself, I kind of grew into it. So I was lucky enough to end up in Las Vegas. And somehow I connected with a good friend who was at that point a vice president for Wolfgang Puck. And Wolfgang at that point had many restaurants. He was technically the chef to be in Las Vegas, Spago, Postrillo, Lupo. And he hired me as a general manager for Spago. And the rest is history. I kind of end up running one of the most successful, busiest restaurant in Las Vegas. I made a name for myself. Eventually, ended up being a director of operation for Wolfgang Puck, helped running the 4-5 operations. At that point, I think they had a $60 million operation on the strip in Las Vegas. Fast forward 3 years later, Thomas Keller was looking for someone to open his first outside restaurant from Yountville, Bouchon, in the Venetian. Um, I was lucky enough to get the job. I guess even though he was very hard to choose anyone, I remember the recruiter told me, "Look, you're the number 9 that Thomas Keller interviewed, so don't keep your eyes up because he's very particular." I said, "Hey, I'm looking forward to meet him." I got hired. I flew to Yountville. I remember sitting on the second floor of French Laundry, and that's where the interview happened. And we connected, and he hired me to be his director of operation for Bouchon. I opened Las Vegas Bouchon in the Venetian for great success, and ended up going back and forth between Yountville, Napa Valley, and Vegas. Helped him open the bakeries, run the operation, and then move forward. I really wanted to do more than restaurant. At that point, I think after a few years, I really made a name for myself, and I felt I needed to grow out of the restaurant business. I need to be a little bit more, I would say, food and beverage, hotels, casino, not only restaurants and fine dining, casual dining, room service, banquet, nightlife, pool, anything. So I was hired by Wynn as a Wynn Resort to be the fine dining director for Wynn Resort. I was there for a few years. And then I was recruited by Borgata Casino to be the vice president for Borgata, which at that point, Borgata in 2007 was probably the best casino in Atlantic City. Had Bobby Flay restaurant, Michael Mina had a restaurant, Wolfgang Puck had a restaurant. So transition there, was there for 5 years. Eventually got recruited to go to Melbourne, Australia. Worked in Melbourne, Australia, for Crown Casino. And the really highlight of my career, and I say that because as much as I've loved working for Wolfgang Puck and Thomas Keller and obviously Win, so my background became very high-end luxury hospitality, whether it's restaurant business or casino business. I got recruited to be the regional vice president for Four Seasons Hotel for Asia Pacific. And I flew and I was living there in Singapore base, which is the APAC office of Four Seasons was in Singapore. And I was responsible for, I would say, almost a $500 million worth of food and beverage revenue with Four Seasons. And we're talking here restaurants and hotels all over China, Japan, Tokyo, Maldives, all the way to India, Southeast Asia, to Sydney. Job was amazing because it was really more it had an operational focus. Obviously, all the P&L, I had to kind of be responsible for the profitability of every restaurant or every food and beverage inside the hotel. But I would say 70% of my job was really looking 3, 4, 5 years and looking at concepting. So going in in the market, study the market, do a market survey, and understand if Four Seasons is opening in Tokyo or in Kyoto or in Guangzhou or Hangzhou or whatever, how many restaurants should we have in that Four Seasons? What kind of concept are we going to have? Should we have a Chinese? Should we have a rooftop? Should we have a speakeasy? Is there too many Italian? Can we compete with an Italian restaurant? So, and from there, try to sell this concept to the owners of the hotels, obviously the asset managers, and from there working with amazing designers to really design the restaurant. And that was really most of my work, working with people like, Tony Chi, Adam Tihani, David Rockwell, Avroko, all these amazing these restaurant designers who really, are used by the big casinos. Fast forward, moved back to the US, end up working for Kimpton Hotels as a regional VP for restaurants and bar, and help them also grow the Kimpton food and beverage outside as IAG acquired Kimpton. So I'm telling you that because that's how I end up in South Florida. I lived here because they wanted me to be on the East Coast, overseeing obviously the Caribbean. Within 2-3 hours flight of all the property I was managing. COVID happened. I decided to do things on my own. Wrong timing to open a restaurant. Somehow I decided to jump in it. There was a small pizzeria on Atlantic Ave, which is a premier street in Delray Beach. Beautiful street, all the restaurants, the galleries. I just jumped on it and I said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a Lebanese restaurant. People thought that I opened a Lebanese restaurant, which is called Amar. This is the concept that I own, and because I'm Lebanese, which is interesting because Amar is my first Lebanese restaurant. So it just happened that I felt that this Lebanese cuisine, the Mediterranean cuisine, was exploding in the US. And you look everywhere, you'll find tons of sushi restaurants, tons of Italian restaurants, tons of steak houses, and you name it, and you don't find Mediterranean restaurant. So I decided to do it because I think the Lebanese cuisine or Eastern Mediterranean cuisine, Lebanese, Turkish, Greek, Israeli, Palestinian, definitely now I think the cuisine to be. We talk in Philadelphia, Michael Solomonov from Zahav, made it very popular. My friend Philippe Masoud Ilili in New York. So the cuisine was exploding. The restaurant were doing very well. And I know for a fact that once people get used to it, they're going to love it because it has all the ingredients of a lot of meze, a lot of small plate to share, a lot of vegan option, a lot of vegetarian option, fresh, organic, not heavy, and plenty of variety. So I opened a small restaurant. We're talking here 40 seats, no bar, beer and wine. And, it was a big risk. Big risk because I kind of am opening an ethnic restaurant in Atlantic Ave, which at that point, 5 years ago, Atlantic Ave was more very touristy and more approachable food. So you find Italian cuisine and steak houses and tavernas. It wasn't yet known to be a destination dining like New York or Miami or DC or something like that. But I opened, and honestly, from day one, we were packed. Like I felt that we hit the spot. Finally, most of the feedback was, "Oh, finally, something amazing on the app, something different." as you know, Delray Beach get a lot of snowbirders. So a lot of people have second homes here from New York, from Connecticut, from DC, from Montreal, from Toronto. And all of these people love the Lebanese cuisine because they're used to it. There's plenty of Lebanese restaurants, obviously, in New York, DC, Toronto, Montreal. So we became very popular. And 3 years later, we definitely outgrew the concept. Not a small restaurant. The restaurant that I'm in right now was existing restaurant, kind of went out of business. I bought the restaurant and I took a leap. We went from a 40-seat restaurant to 200-seat restaurant, full liquor. We went from a 1.5 million operation to a $5 million operation right now, dinner only. So the concept has been very strong. We've been very popular from day one. We're still packed every night. We've had an amazing, team. And in the old location, I still have the old location. I turned it into Amar Sandwich Shop. So now we have two concept kind of together. We have the fine dining Amar, which is the whole Lebanese Middle Eastern cuisine, the meze, the kebabs, the desserts, a huge wine list from all over the world, from Lebanon and Napa and France, and a huge beer list, a huge cocktail list. But then I felt that I had that location on the app that I didn't want to let go. I still had 10 years on lease. So I turned to a sandwich shop, which actually hit the spot. The cuisine kind of, and when I mean sandwich shop, I call it Amar Lebanese street food. And it's about, you go in and you're going to get an amazing shawarma sandwich, an amazing beef shawarma, chicken shawarma, falafel, flatbread, hummus bowls, falafel bowls. And it's been also a success since we opened. So yeah, here we are, uh, owning two concepts that I think have room to grow. Yeah, I that's what we do.
Wow. I have, by the way, a comment, then a million questions. Let me start with the comment. I'm not surprised that Thomas picked your name among the other nine candidates. Probably he just saw that you're Lebanese. I mean,
Uh-huh.
hospitality runs in your veins like the entire country.
Yeah.
Probably that was the reason. But
Yeah, no,
let me
thank
go
you.
back.
Yeah, no, I was lucky, but obviously my experience and I mean, I felt that I know a lot about the business from all kind, and I think that's
Yeah,
really my background because I started as an entrepreneur. So even though I was an employee for Thomas Keller, I was an employee for Wolfgang Puck, I was an employee for the casinos, I never approached any job as an employee. I approached every job as I owned the job because that's
yeah,
my background. So the way I approach, the way I lead, the way I kind of focus and care comes from the idea that I'm always an owner. And I never consider myself an employee,
yeah.
even though I was making a salary and I could have shut down when I come home, which is never the case. That's why at the end, I end up opening my own restaurant because I knew it's in my blood. Like there's so much I can take from anyone who can hire me. So I had to do my own decision. And I think at that point, it was a little late. I thought I wish I opened my own restaurant 15 years ago because I probably would have owned 20 by now, if not more. But hey, I'm happy I did it, and I'm very optimistic about the future and about our growth for the company.
Let me go back to the names you mentioned. Four Seasons, Borgata, Thomas Keller, Wolfgang Pank, Kimpton. So each one of those, by the way, for many, is the end of their career. Like I would get there, get a senior position, and that's it until retirement.
Yeah.
How do you know when it's time to leave such a great position to another position? I mean, that's a challenge on its own.
Yeah, great question. Look, I mean, every job you go into, you feel. Look, I knew Thomas Cutter wasn't my final job. I was still young. I needed more. I know when wasn't my final job. Because every time after, like you get to a point, people like me, they always want to do more. So if you are managing 20 restaurants, you want to manage 40. If you're managing a team of 1,000, you probably want to do more. I would say the highlight again, I go back to the Four Seasons. The Four Seasons could have been my career because at that point that was a company that ticked all the boxes. Not only I was doing some amazing concept and creating some, but I mean, at the end I was living overseas. I wanted to come back to the US, and the Four Seasons was going through a lot of changes at that point, going from private to public to back to private. It was all turnover in the higher management. And sometimes you don't click with all the higher ups. Some people you work with and they see your vision and they let you do your job, and other people decide to micromanage you and think that they know better. And sometimes you decide maybe you should go somewhere where you're a little bit more appreciated. But at the end, Four Seasons could have been my last job. I mean, it was an amazing,
Yeah.
amazing brand. Living in Singapore, you can't complain. One of the best countries in the world. Traveling for a living, Asia, China, Japan, Maldives, Bangkok. It's a dream job. But yeah,
Yes.
uh, but maybe everything led me to come back and do my own thing. That's how it is sometimes.
How was the shift from being like, a in a senior position, like a corporate executive, to an independent owner? There is a lot of responsibility now. It's a lot different. Can you tell me about this switch from that world to this world?
It's interesting because uh, it, I always knew that because I started as entrepreneur, right? So I worked for my dad and I
Yes.
opened a business. So I know how hard owning your own business is. Um, but I never. It was a wake up call for me to come back and do my to do my own business. And there's many times, to be completely honest, I woke up and said, "What the hell am I doing here?" Like you don't know how much these corporate jobs, they could be stressful, no doubt, and there's always traveling and hard work and meetings and dealing with a lot, but you have the resources, right? You have the
Yes.
resources, like you need you call the accountant, hey, I need data, I need this Excel sheet. You have a designer in house, you have development person in house, you have an HR person in house. The amount of resources that you have as an executive makes your job very, very easy, right? Now you come back and you start as an entrepreneur, and obviously you still, like right now,
You
I
have to
kind of
do
do
all of
everything.
those.
So now I'm the accountant, I'm the marketing, I'm the social media, I'm the HR, you know, I'm the babysitter, I manage. I do have a good team. I have probably around 50 to 60 employees between two restaurants. I have an amazing management. My daughter works for me, my son-in-law works for me. I have a lot of people. I have a great accountant. So I'm starting to build this infrastructure. I have a great marketing and PR company. But at the end, I have to touch everything. Like it's hard to kind of let go because there's a lot of small details that you have to be involved. And at the same time, I'm not small, but I'm not that big. So there's so much I can hire. I wish I can hire a full-time HR and to deal, or full time, so you have to do things till you grow. And hopefully after we have 3 or 4 or 5 restaurants, then you can afford to have in-house HR, in-house accounting, in-house social media, a purchasing person who can do your purchases so you don't have to do your purchase yourself, so it has to take time to get there, but I enjoy it. Like, I mean, I enjoy it for a while. It's like, well, I kind of was proud of myself. Like, yeah, I still get it. Like, I know how to do things. I delegated so much during my corporate life that you get a bit spoiled, even though you know how to do it. But it's like, why should I do it? Let them do it. I pay
Yeah,
them for it.
there's a team for it.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so what? Let them do it. No, I do it now. Like, I enjoy it, and it's good to know that push come to shove, you can do everything. And only when you're
Yes.
cornered as an entrepreneur and you wake up one day and you feel like, shit, am I going to be able to do payroll tomorrow? Am I going to be able to do this? My management show up. So I have to show up even though I'm so tired and I don't want to work tonight. So there's stuff that comes out of you as an entrepreneur that only an entrepreneur will know because you have no other person to depend on other yourself and you just do it.
You said when you first started Amar, it was 40 seats.
Yes.
At some point, have you felt that maybe I should go back to the corporate job and just, quit all that headache and all that responsibility of managing the business?
Yeah, look, I no, trust me. I mean, look, I don't want to go into a lot of personal. During this time, I lost my wife. So my wife was my
Yeah,
partner, and she helped me. She was also IT, but she's also was an amazing cook, and we kind of partnered together. She's the one. So there are two ways. First, losing her was a big moment for me, and that was like,
of
okay,
course.
should I just, that was a dream for both of us. Maybe I should continue going back. So that was a moment that was tested. But there's also a lot of moment where even when I own my restaurant, I've been in this business for a long time, and I get a lot of calls from corporate, from recruiters, and telling me, hey, this is a huge job and your name came up. It's like, I'm fine. And then I go
Pressure.
back to bed and I
Yes.
used to tell my wife, like, "Oh, this is a lot of money. Like, this is amazing. Like, I don't know if I want to give it up." And like, she was like, slap me in a way, like in a nice way. It's like, no, that's it. We're committed. We're doing our thing. You have to continue. So there's always temptation, right? During that
Yes.
time. Now I don't have the temptation anymore.
Of course. It's now different. Like,
Now it's different. Now I have a legit business. I have a big restaurant. I have another small, I know I can grow. Like I'm happy. Like I don't know what kind of job unless someone calls me and offer me money that I can't refuse, being CEO maybe of a $500 million restaurant group, maybe.
yes.
If they buy me out in the same time, maybe I'll do that too. But honestly, yeah, it was fun, but it was not enough for me. Like the guy who manage a huge corporation of restaurants and F&B to run a 1.5 million operation 40 seat. It was like kind of, it was fun, but it was like
Yes.
boring at this point. Like, you can do it so much. So, good question. But yeah, no, I mean, you always get tempted because there's these people calling you and then you go see these huge casinos in the Bahamas or Macau. And, I made a lot of great friends to this date. I probably know
Yes.
half the president and everyone who's in between Macau all the way to Las Vegas. A lot of people know me and have been in business a long time. So they call me from time to time and say, what you up to? You want to consult? You want to do this? I can do some consulting. Last summer, actually, it was slow. And a friend of mine who is the president of the Ocean Casino in Borga called me and said, we're opening a couple of restaurants. Why don't you come and help us? I have a couple of daughters who live in the area. I said, why not? So it was kind of a consulting, seeing the family. It was fun. I was back and forth every 2 weeks. I took it. Was nice change, because it was slow here. But I could not do it full time. Like it was tempting, but I don't know. The more I work for people, the more I realize that I'm not set up
Yeah.
to work for anyone anymore.
Nicholas, from your decades of experience, what's one piece of career advice for every hospitality job seeker in the US? What can you tell them?
I think you have to grow slowly. I think but there's a lot of there's a lot of temptation for people, young people, to jump right away. So you'll be an assistant
Yes.
manager for 2, 3 months working for, let's say, Thomas Keller, and someone will knock on your door and offer you general manager. you know and because most of them they offer general manager because you're working for Thomas Keller. They have no idea
Yes.
that you can't even you're still not there. You're 2 years away from being a general manager. And some people will jump on it because, okay, you can go from $70,000 a year to $150,000 a year. But that's a huge mistake because you're not ready. You will fail as a general manager and you'll be fired and you will lose your assistant manager. Y- you know, it's like a line cook. You got to be a line cook before you become a sous chef. You got to be a sous chef before you become executive chef. Time will help you. The experience cannot be fast track. Okay. There's nothing wrong. I did it to jump on opportunities when they're there. That's different, and I did it. But you have to know you can do the job. You know, just the title, eventually, you cannot BS your way around. You cannot lie to people. In order for you to be general manager of a $10 million restaurant, you need to know everything. You need to know how to lead. You need to know how to do P&L. You need to understand numbers. You have to know the beverage. You have to know how to deal with the customers and the dishwasher and the bartender. Like, it takes a lot of qualification. Qualification only can be gathered while you are an assistant manager for 2, 3 years. And hopefully you're working for a general manager who's teaching you and mentoring you. The other piece of advice said, be careful who your boss is. Okay. Make sure that you're working for someone that he's teaching you. I worked for a lot of people for a lot of years and didn't learn anything from them. Other than that, I know they were my boss and I had to do what they're doing, but they had but luckily I also worked for a lot of people. You know, I can say at Four Seasons, I can say at Borgata, I can say even with Wolfgang Puck, work for people who will teach you, will mentor you. They tell you if you're making a mistake. They tell you how to get there, and I think that's very valuable. The experience you get in your between mid-20s to mid-30s are very important, and that could set you up to be very successful or not very successful. And this is why today I see people who were managers with me and now they're vice presidents and they're very successful. I see people who were managers and they're still general managers after 30, 40 years. They're still in the same position. Why? Because all they do is move around without learning anything. And they become general manager. They never really get to the director of operation, to the vice president, because they're not really acquiring these skills, they're not investing in themselves or working for people who are really helping them learn. That's a big problem
An
in this field.
insightful answer.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Let me wrap up this conversation with a question about Amar. So you said that you went from 40 seats to 200 seats. Now you have two concepts. What are the future plans? Is it to expand to more seats, like bigger places or other cities?
Yeah,
What's in
look,
your
I
mind for
mean,
that?
after opening the sandwich shop, I kind of realized that there's two ways we can grow. Um, at this point, I'm open to opening more in different cities, but I think Florida today, I can open another 4 or 5 in Florida alone without going anywhere else. Like Miami could be amazing. I just looked at the location in Fort Lauderdale a week ago. West Palm is amazing. Tampa is amazing. I mean, all these within an hour to 2 hours drive, I can open another Amar and a sandwich shop and grow my company from $6 million to 20, $25 million without going to Atlanta or going to DC or New York. Yeah, do I love being in New York? Of course. Do I want to be in Austin, Texas? Maybe. At this point in my career, I think maybe, unless I get someone to invest a private equity heavy investment where money is not a problem, and you can really go grow quickly, like many other restaurants did very fast, then maybe. But if I'm gonna take it day by day today, I can see myself potentially opening one full Amar every 2 years and maybe a couple of sandwich shop every year. The sandwich shop is a very easy operation to grow and actually has more potential, in my opinion, than the restaurant because people are looking for that. This is what I do. It's like it's like very fast, fresh meat, fresh chicken. Hummus bowls, salad bowls, rice bowls. You put the falafel on top. You put the chicken on top. Easy to do. You know, in and out. We do amazing lunch business, delivery business, catering business, and imagine having these in Miami or Fort Lauderdale. You can under a building like it will explode, and it's self checkout. Like the labor part of it's also very beneficial. Where it take 30, 40 people. Like on a Saturday night when we do 400 covers at Amar, I have 30 people working at Amar. Right? I mean, it's a lot of people to produce 400 covers. Right? 3 bartenders, 2 hostesses, 2 managers, 10 servers, 5 bussers, 3 dishwashers, 10 line cooks. It adds up. Right? You go into a sandwich shop, I have 2 people in the kitchen, 1 people up front, and we're doing $1,000 an hour. Like, I mean, it moves. It's just very smart business. And I think it has a lot because to me today, the growth, other than the money, which is a problem, right? I mean, the funds, your biggest problem with growth is labor, is people,
Yes.
right? This is the biggest challenge everywhere. Finding the right people, which they don't exist anymore, I guess. No one wants to work, or they want to get overpaid in many ways for no experience. Turnover is a problem. So, that's the only thing. If you can find the right labor mix, you cannot do, we can be robotic and AI cannot take over the restaurant, but you can definitely use a lot of technology in our business, more so in the fast food place space than the fine dining. It's very hard to because again, you can have 2, 3 people in the kitchen, they can do self-checkout, you can automate a lot of stuff that could make you a little bit more profitable and easier to invest. I will need 5 to 6,000 square foot to open an Amar. I could open an Amar sandwich with 1,500 square foot. I will need three,
Yep.
$4 million to open an Amar. I could probably open a sandwich shop with $500,000. So you see the difference of this. But ideally, I can do both. If the location, you can do a hybrid concept as well, which is interesting. So yeah, if we can, I would love to open more Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, even Boca, there's a lot of
Yeah.
growth. Tampa is amazing. There's a lot of stuff happening in Tampa and St. Petersburg. So, I'm always on the lookout for great opportunity, whether new development, residential multifunction, or a second generation restaurant that opened, went out of business. You go in, you spend a little money, and then you turn it, and make it your own space. Yeah.
All the best wishes. I mean, this is really an interesting thing to learn about, the insight about the difference between the concepts. So, yeah, all the best wishes. Hope to see
Thank
both
you.
concepts like all over South Florida and then everywhere.
Thank you. Yeah,
And
no,
thank you so much for your time today, for sharing those insights, sharing your journey and everything.
thank you. It was a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for all the questions, and best of